In the summer of 1941, as the world teetered on the brink of global conflict, the United States Army recognized the need for a specialized force capable of countering the formidable armored divisions of Nazi Germany. This led to the establishment of the Tank Destroyer, TD, branch, a novel concept aimed at developing units equipped specifically to combat enemy tanks. Among the first to be formed was the 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion, activated on August 19, 1941. Initially part of the 1st Infantry Division, the battalion underwent rigorous training to prepare for the challenges of modern warfare. The TD doctrine emphasized speed, mobility, and firepower, with units designed to operate independently and deliver decisive blows to enemy armor. Sergeant Dean Kenney, a native of Texas, was one of the many young men who answered the call to serve. With a background in mechanics and a keen understanding of machinery, Kenney was an ideal candidate for the TD program. His technical skills and leadership potential quickly became apparent, earning him a position as a crew member in the battalion. The 601 ST's first combat experience came during Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa in November 1942. Landing in Casablanca, the battalion faced the harsh realities of desert warfare, engaging German forces in the rugged terrain of Tunisia. Equipped with the M3 gun motor carriage, a makeshift tank destroyer based on the M3 half-track chassis, the unit faced significant challenges. The M3's 75mm gun proved effective against lighter German tanks, but struggled against the heavily armored Panzer IVs and Tigers. Despite these limitations, the 601st demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability. In the Battle of El Getter on March 23, 1943, the battalion achieved a significant victory, destroying 37 enemy tanks and earning the first of 2 presidential unit citations. This engagement marked a turning point, showcasing the effectiveness of the tank destroyer concept when employed by well-trained and determined crews. As the war progressed, the 601st continued to evolve. In 1943, the unit received the M10 tank destroyer, a more advanced vehicle featuring a fully rotating turret and a 76mm gun capable of engaging heavier German armor. The M10's design addressed many of the shortcomings of the M3, providing crews like Kenney's with a more formidable platform for their missions. Throughout the Italian campaign, the battalion participated in key operations, including the landings at Salerno and Anzio. The M10S proved invaluable in providing mobile fire support, engaging German tanks and fortifications, and assisting infantry units in their advance. Kenney's crew, now operating the M10, adapted quickly to the new vehicle, leveraging its capabilities to devastating effect. The 601 ST's journey continued through France and into Germany, with the battalion playing a pivotal role in the Allied push towards victory in Europe. Along the way, Sergeant Kenney and his comrades faced numerous challenges, from the perils of combat to the harsh conditions of the European theater. Yet, their unwavering commitment to their mission and each other remained steadfast. In the following chapters, we will delve deeper into the experiences of Sergeant Dean Kenney and the 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion, exploring their engagements, triumphs, and the indomitable spirit that defined them as true warriors of World War II. By the time Sergeant Dean Kenney's crew was fully formed, it had become clear that the success of a tank destroyer unit relied not only on firepower, but on teamwork and trust. A tank destroyer like the M10 was a small, cramped environment, housing just a driver, gunner, loader, and commander. Each role was vital. Any misstep could mean death not only for the individual, but for the entire crew. Kenney, now a seasoned sergeant, assumed the role of commander for his 4-man crew. Alongside him were Corporal James "Jimmy" Harper, the driver known for his uncanny ability to maneuver the M10 through impossible terrain, Private First Class Walter "Walt" Davis, a meticulous gunner with nerves of steel, and Private Robert "Bobby" Fields, the loader whose calm under pressure was legendary among the battalion. Together, they formed a bond that would carry them through some of the bloodiest battles of the European theater. The M10, nicknamed Wolverine by American crews, was a hybrid of speed and firepower. Armed with a 3-inch, 76.2mm gun mounted in a rotating turret and lightly armored compared to a full tank, It demanded precision and cunning from its operators. It was not a vehicle to charge headlong into battle, but one designed for flanking, ambushes, and sudden strikes against superior enemy armor. Kenney understood this implicitly. He knew that the difference between life and death often rested on positioning, timing, and the cohesion of the crew. Training for Kenney's crew was grueling. In the dense forests and rugged hills of North Africa and later Italy, they practiced shooting from concealed positions, rapidly redeploying after firing, and coordinating with infantry and artillery units. Each crew member learned to anticipate the other's moves. A single mistake in targeting or miscommunication could result in disaster, but the crew developed an almost instinctive rhythm, anticipating danger before it arrived. Their first real test in Italy came near Salerno, where German Panzer IVs advanced under cover of smoke and terrain. Kenney's crew, hidden in a small wooded ravine, waited for the right moment. When the lead tank appeared, Walt's gun roared, striking the enemy vehicle with pinpoint accuracy. In a flurry of well-coordinated maneuvers, the M10s of the 601st struck again and again, forcing the German column to retreat. For Kenney, it was proof that strategy, patience, and precise teamwork were more effective than brute force alone. Over the following months, the crew's reputation grew. Other units began to recognize the four-man team not just as competent, but almost unstoppable when operating together. Stories circulated of them destroying multiple enemy vehicles in a single engagement while sustaining minimal damage to themselves. The bond forged through countless battles became legendary, inspiring younger crews and boosting morale across the battalion. However, the life of a tank destroyer crew was never glamorous. The M10's armor was thin, and German tanks and artillery were relentless. Each mission carried a heavy psychological toll. Kenney's crew witnessed destruction, loss, and the fear of sudden death on a daily basis. Yet, they survived not only because of skill, but because of trust and a mutual understanding that each man's life depended on the other's. This chapter of their story sets the stage for the epic engagements to come. Kenney's crew would soon face situations that tested every ounce of their training and courage, proving that in the chaos of war, a small, disciplined team could make an enormous impact on the battlefield. September 9, 1943, marked a pivotal moment in the Italian campaign. Operation Avalanche, the Allied landings at Salerno. For Sergeant Dean Kenney and his crew, this was their first true test under the harsh reality of combat in Europe. Unlike training exercises in North Africa, the enemy here was well-prepared, cunning, and deadly. The coastline was defended with entrenched infantry, fortified artillery positions, and armored units poised to repel the landing. Kenney's M10 tank destroyer, along with several others from the 601st Battalion, had been deployed inland to provide mobile anti-tank support for the advancing infantry. The Americans knew that German counterattacks would likely include Panzer IVs and self-propelled guns. The key was to anticipate the enemy, strike decisively, and then relocate before retaliation could devastate their light armor. The battle commenced with intense artillery barrages, explosions ripping the landscape and dust choking visibility. As Kenney and his crew navigated the rough Italian hills, the first German tanks emerged over a ridge. The moment of truth arrived. Walt Davis, the gunner, tracked the lead Panzer IV and fired. The shell struck perfectly, detonating the tank's ammunition and sending flames skyward. The other tanks hesitated, giving Kenney the chance to reposition the M10 into another firing angle. What followed was a tense cat-and-mouse game. Using the M10's mobility to their advantage, Kenney's crew engaged the German tanks from unexpected positions, delivering crippling blows before quickly retreating into cover. Bobby Fields, the loader, never faltered under the relentless pace, supplying shells with precision. Jimmy Harper, the driver, maneuvered through uneven terrain with remarkable skill, often bringing the vehicle perilously close to enemy positions to maximize the effect of their firepower. By the end of the first day, Kenney's crew had destroyed 3 enemy tanks and several vehicles, while sustaining only minor damage to their M10. For many soldiers in the battalion, this level of effectiveness was extraordinary. Tank destroyer crews often faced much higher losses in their initial engagements. Word spread through the battalion about the small four-man team operating with almost surgical precision, striking fear into the German armored units. The psychological impact of their success cannot be overstated. For infantry units advancing alongside the M10s, knowing that Kenney's crew could cover flanks and neutralize enemy armor provided a vital morale boost. It also sent a message to German commanders. These American tank destroyers, though lightly armored, were lethal in the right hands. Salerno also taught Kenney and his crew valuable lessons about the chaos of real combat. They learned to read enemy movements, anticipate artillery strikes, and communicate under fire with minimal noise. Every engagement honed their instincts, transforming them from trained operators into battle-hardened warriors. The battle raged for several days, but by September 16th, the Allies had established a foothold. The 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion's performance, particularly the remarkable effectiveness of Kenney's crew, contributed directly to the survival of the beachhead. The team had earned a reputation that would follow them through Italy and into the next phase of the European War, proof that a small, skilled unit could change the course of a battle. This baptism by fire forged Kenney's crew into an elite fighting unit. They had experienced the brutal realities of European combat, survived against a competent enemy, and demonstrated that precision, teamwork, and courage could achieve results that brute force alone could not. January 22, 1944, marked the beginning of Operation Shingle, the amphibious landing at Anzio, Italy, a daring attempt by the Allies to outflank the German Gustav Line and push toward Rome. For Sergeant Dean Kenney and his crew, Anzio would prove to be one of the most grueling and dangerous operations of their entire service. The terrain was flat, open, and exposed, a stark contrast to the rolling hills of Salerno, and the Germans had learned well from previous engagements. Upon landing, Kenney's M10 was immediately thrust into defensive operations. The flat plains surrounding the beachhead offered minimal cover, leaving tank destroyer crews highly vulnerable to German tanks, artillery, and aerial attacks. Visibility was good, but so was the enemy's line of fire. It became apparent that survival depended on cunning, patience, and absolute coordination within the crew. The German response was swift and brutal. Panzer IVs, self-propelled guns, and the feared Tiger tanks launched repeated counterattacks, attempting to drive the Allies back into the sea. Kenney's crew took up position in a small network of hedgerows and abandoned buildings. Walt Davis, the gunner, carefully calculated firing angles to exploit the M10's high-velocity 76mm gun, while Bobby Fields kept a steady supply of shells ready, ensuring rapid fire without hesitation. Jimmy Harper maneuvered the M10 expertly through narrow lanes and concealed positions, constantly changing firing points to avoid enemy retaliation. Over the course of several days, Kenney's crew participated in numerous engagements that tested every ounce of their skill. One notable encounter involved a German column of 5 Panzer IVs advancing under cover of fog. Using terrain and camouflage, Kenney's M10 struck from a concealed position, disabling 2 tanks with precise shots. The remaining German vehicles, confused and under relentless fire, were forced to retreat. The crew's success became legendary among the infantry, who relied on their support to hold critical positions during repeated German assaults. Life at Anzio was not only a battle of firepower, but also endurance. The winter was bitterly cold, rations were limited, and constant bombardment made rest nearly impossible. Kenney's crew endured sleepless nights, frozen fingers, and the psychological strain of knowing that any misstep could be fatal. Yet, despite these hardships, their cohesion never faltered. Each man understood his role and the importance of the other's actions, creating an unspoken rhythm that allowed them to survive repeated engagements. By March, the M10s of the 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion had become a symbol of hope at Anzio. Kenney's crew, in particular, had gained a reputation for taking calculated risks that often yielded significant results. Their actions disrupted German plans, destroyed key enemy vehicles, and provided vital support to infantry units under siege. The Anzio campaign underscored the delicate balance between aggression and caution. Kenney learned that a well-timed shot, a sudden maneuver, or a clever use of terrain could turn the tide of a firefight. The experience honed his leadership, sharpened the crew's instincts, and solidified the bond between them. In many ways, Anzio was a crucible, forging Kenney's team into one of the most effective tank destroyer crews of the European theater. Despite the chaos and carnage, they survived. By the time the Allies finally broke out of the beachhead in late May 1944, Kenney's crew had not only contributed decisively to holding Anzio, but had also proven the effectiveness of the M10 when operated by a disciplined and courageous team. They emerged battle-hardened, respected, and ready for the next chapter of the war, a march through Italy toward the heart of Germany itself. After the brutal campaigns at Salerno and Anzio, Sergeant Dean Kenney and his crew found themselves advancing northward through the rugged terrain of central Italy in mid-1944. The Allied push toward Rome had succeeded, but the German army was far from defeated. In the Apennine Mountains and northern plains, Kenney's M10 crew would confront some of the most formidable armored opponents of the war, the Panzer IVs, Panther tanks, and the dreaded Tiger I heavy tanks. The M10, while fast and maneuverable, was lightly armored compared to the German heavy tanks. Its 76mm gun could penetrate the side and rear armor of most Panzer IVs and even Panthers at closer ranges, but frontal engagements with Tigers were extremely risky. Kenney's crew had to rely not on brute force, but on tactics, flanking maneuvers, ambush positions, and cooperation with infantry and artillery units. Every engagement required meticulous planning and split-second decisions. One of the first encounters with heavy German armor occurred near the town of Florence. Intelligence had reported a German counterattack with a mixed armored column, including several Tigers supporting infantry along a narrow mountain pass. Kenney's crew moved into position, concealed among rocky outcrops and dense vegetation. Walt Davis calculated firing solutions while Bobby Fields prepared ammunition, and Jimmy Harper expertly positioned the M10 to exploit the enemy's blind spots. When the German column advanced, the crew sprang into action. The M10's 76mm gun struck the flank of a Panther, disabling it and creating confusion among the enemy ranks. Using the resulting chaos, Kenney's crew coordinated a series of rapid shots to eliminate two Panzer IVs, forcing the remaining Tigers to retreat temporarily. This engagement highlighted the effectiveness of their teamwork and underscored the importance of positioning and patience over raw firepower. The battle for northern Italy was a constant series of ambushes and counter-ambushes. Kenney's crew faced relentless artillery fire, mines, and sniper attacks. They often operated ahead of infantry units to scout for enemy armor, exposing themselves to extreme danger. Each encounter demanded nerves of steel. The margin for error was razor-thin. A single miscalculated move could result in the destruction of the M10 and the death of the crew. Despite these dangers, Kenney's crew thrived. They learned to anticipate German tactics, using terrain to their advantage and timing their shots for maximum effect. Their success boosted morale not only within their platoon, but across the entire 601st Battalion. Stories of a four-man M10 crew disabling multiple enemy tanks in a single engagement became legend, inspiring other crews to adopt similar tactics. By the fall of 1944, the campaign in northern Italy had become a war of attrition. The Germans were dug in, utilizing mountain passes and fortified positions to slow the Allied advance. Kenney's M10, light and agile, became a vital tool for reconnaissance and strike missions. The crew's ability to strike quickly and disappear into the terrain allowed them to survive encounters that would have destroyed heavier but less mobile tanks. This period also tested the psychological endurance of the crew. Constant exposure to deadly engagements, harsh weather, and the loss of comrades took a toll. Kenney maintained cohesion by emphasizing trust and mutual reliance. The crew understood that survival depended on their ability to function as a single unit under extreme pressure. By the time the Allies reached the Po Valley, Kenney's crew had earned a reputation as one of the most reliable and effective M10 teams in the theater. They had faced the most fearsome German tanks, survived near-impossible situations, and proven that skill, teamwork, and courage could overcome even the most formidable odds. The stage was now set for the final push into Germany itself, a campaign that would test every lesson they had learned and push them to the limits of endurance and bravery. By early 1945, after months of grueling campaigns across Italy, Sergeant Dean Kenney and his M10 crew had earned a fearsome reputation. The Allies had secured northern Italy, and the next objective was crossing the Alps and advancing into southern Germany. This phase of the war would test the crew in ways no previous battle had, facing fortified positions, snow-covered terrain, and a determined German army fighting for its homeland. The transition from Italy to Germany required both physical and tactical adaptation. The terrain changed dramatically. The rolling hills and narrow mountain passes gave way to broad river valleys and dense forests, where German defenses were heavily concentrated. Kenney's M10, agile and mobile, was ideal for scouting enemy positions, flanking armored columns, and providing rapid-fire support to infantry. However, the threat of Tiger and Panther tanks remained ever-present, and the crew knew that frontal engagements with these behemoths could be fatal. One of the first significant engagements occurred near the Rhine River. German forces had established a strong defensive line, including anti-tank guns, mines, and entrenched infantry. Kenney's orders were clear: reconnoiter the area, identify armored threats, and support the infantry advance. Using a combination of speed and stealth, Jimmy Harper maneuvered the M10 into a concealed position overlooking a narrow approach used by German tanks. Walt Davis lined up the first shot, targeting the flank of a Panzer IV. With precise calculation, the shell struck, immobilizing the tank and sending a signal of impending doom to the remaining enemy vehicles. The German response was immediate. Tigers and Panthers advanced to retaliate, their heavy guns a formidable threat. Kenney's crew relied on mobility and coordination. They fired from one hidden position, then quickly repositioned to avoid return fire, exploiting the M10's speed. Bobby Fields, steady and efficient under pressure, ensured the gun never paused for reload, while Walt Davis continued to pick off targets with unerring accuracy. The result was a tactical masterpiece. Several German tanks were destroyed, and the enemy's advance was stalled. This engagement was not without risk. Mines and artillery fire littered the approach routes, forcing Harper to execute near-impossible maneuvers to avoid destruction. The M10, lightly armored, shuddered under near misses, and the crew endured the constant tension of knowing a single shell could end their mission and their lives. Yet, despite these dangers, their cohesion and trust allowed them to perform at the highest level. The crew's reputation had spread throughout the division. Commanders increasingly relied on Kenney's M10 for critical missions, scouting enemy positions, leading ambushes, and providing direct fire support in areas where heavier tanks could not maneuver. Their success was a testament to the principle that the combination of mobility, precision, and teamwork could neutralize even the most heavily armed opponents. As the Allies pushed deeper into Germany, Kenney's crew faced winter conditions that compounded the challenges of combat. Snow and ice made maneuvering treacherous, artillery fire was relentless, and supply lines were often stretched thin. Yet the crew adapted, maintaining discipline and efficiency in every engagement. Their ability to survive and thrive in these conditions set them apart from other units and demonstrated the versatility and effectiveness of the M10 when operated by skilled, battle-hardened soldiers. By the time the Allies approached the Siegfried Line, Kenney's crew had become a living legend within the 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion. They had faced the most fearsome German armor, survived extreme conditions, and consistently delivered results that impacted the battlefield. The lessons learned from Italy, teamwork, tactical positioning, patience, and precise execution, were now being applied to the final, decisive campaigns of the European theater. The stage was set for a series of climactic battles in Germany itself. Kenney and his crew were ready to face the ultimate test of their skill, courage, and endurance, a test that would cement their place in the annals of World War II tank destroyer history. By March 1945, Sergeant Dean Kenney and his M10 crew had crossed into southern Germany. The Allies were closing in on the heart of the Third Reich, but the German army, though battered, remained a formidable opponent. Fortified towns, entrenched infantry, and elite Panzer divisions awaited them, determined to slow the advance. For Kenney's crew, these battles would be among the most dangerous and defining of their entire war experience. The first major engagement occurred near the town of Heilbronn, where intelligence reported concentrations of Panzer IVs and Panther tanks defending key road junctions. The terrain favored the defenders: narrow streets, dense forests, and fortified positions gave the Germans a significant advantage. Kenney knew that direct confrontation with heavy tanks would be suicidal. Instead, he relied on ambush tactics honed during the Italian campaigns. Kenney's M10 moved under the cover of early morning fog, with Jimmy Harper maneuvering the vehicle through narrow paths to avoid German observation posts. Walt Davis, the gunner, prepared the first target, a Panther advancing along a main road. With precise calculation, Davis fired, striking the side armor and disabling the tank. The resulting chaos allowed the M10 crew to reposition and engage additional enemy vehicles, systematically dismantling the German defensive formation. Throughout the day, Kenney's crew executed a series of tactical strikes, neutralizing 5 tanks and several armored personnel carriers. Their coordination was flawless. Davis never hesitated. Fields kept the gun supplied with shells, Harper maneuvered with deadly precision, and Kenney orchestrated every move with calm authority. The engagement showcased the effectiveness of small, mobile units against numerically superior armored forces. However, the cost of these victories was always present. Mines, artillery, and sniper fire made every maneuver dangerous. The crew had to constantly adapt, thinking several moves ahead, anticipating German counterattacks, and exploiting even the smallest vulnerabilities in enemy formations. The M10's light armor meant that survival often depended on outthinking the enemy rather than overpowering them. One particularly harrowing moment occurred when a Tiger I emerged from a side street, targeting the M10. Kenney's crew executed a high-speed flanking maneuver, using buildings and rubble for cover. Walt Davis scored a critical hit on the Tiger's side armor, temporarily disabling it. The crew's nerves were tested to the limit, but their training and cohesion allowed them to survive an encounter that would have destroyed most tanks. By the time Heilbronn was secured, Kenney's crew had become legendary among both American and German units. Their ability to destroy superior tanks while sustaining minimal damage to their own vehicle was remarkable. Stories of their exploits spread quickly, boosting morale among Allied troops and sowing fear among the remaining German forces. The battles in southern Germany were not just about tanks. They were a psychological war as well. The presence of a highly skilled M10 crew capable of rapid strikes and evasive maneuvers forced German commanders to rethink tactics, often slowing counterattacks or diverting resources to defend against unexpected threats. Kenney's small team had a disproportionate impact on the battlefield, proving that strategy and skill could outweigh brute force. As the Allies continued their push, Kenney's crew faced increasingly desperate resistance, yet they maintained their effectiveness. Their experience, honed through years of campaigns from Italy to Germany, allowed them to survive encounters that would have destroyed less skilled crews. Every battle reinforced the lessons of teamwork, patience, and precise execution that had defined their journey from the beaches of Salerno to the heart of Germany. The stage was now set for the final confrontations in the Ruhr Valley and beyond, a series of engagements that would bring the war in Europe to its climax. Kenney's M10 crew, battle-hardened and virtually unstoppable, was poised to play a crucial role in these final, decisive moments of World War II. April 1945 brought Sergeant Dean Kenney and his M10 crew to the Ruhr Valley, the industrial heart of Germany and the site of one of the war's final, most intense engagements. The Ruhr pocket was a concentration of desperate German forces, armored divisions, artillery, and entrenched infantry, all determined to resist the advancing Allies. For Kenney's crew, this meant constant danger, high-stakes battles, and opportunities to demonstrate the full capability of the M10 in skilled hands. The Ruhr's terrain was a mix of urban centers, river crossings, and open fields, perfect for both ambushes and defensive traps. Kenney's orders were clear: provide mobile anti-tank support to infantry units, disrupt German armored movements, and exploit weaknesses in the enemy's lines. The crew knew that German tanks, particularly Panthers and Tigers, still posed a deadly threat, and that careful positioning and rapid action were essential for survival. On the outskirts of Essen, Kenney's crew encountered a column of 10 German tanks attempting to break out of the encirclement. Using concealed positions among factory ruins, they struck first. Walt Davis fired with pinpoint accuracy, taking out the lead Panther, while Bobby Fields ensured a rapid reload to maintain continuous fire. Jimmy Harper maneuvered the M10 through narrow streets and rubble, dodging return fire and keeping the crew concealed from the remaining tanks. The battle was relentless. German armor attempted multiple counterattacks, using combined arms tactics that mixed infantry support with tank advances. Kenney's crew responded with tactical precision, striking from hidden angles, relocating between shots, and coordinating with artillery and infantry units. In one intense firefight, they destroyed 4 tanks and damaged several others, all without sustaining a single critical hit to their M10. This engagement exemplified the deadly efficiency of their teamwork and the tactical advantage of mobility over brute force. The psychological impact of Kenney's crew on German forces was significant. Reports of a small 4-man M10 team capable of neutralizing superior tanks spread rapidly among enemy units, causing hesitation and confusion. Their actions disrupted German plans, slowed counterattacks, and allowed Allied infantry and armor to advance more safely. In essence, a single highly skilled crew had a disproportionate effect on the battlefield, demonstrating the strategic value of expertise and coordination. Urban combat in the Ruhr also tested the crew's endurance and adaptability. Factories, warehouses, and residential areas were riddled with mines, snipers, and artillery traps. Kenney relied on his experience to make split-second decisions, whether to engage, withdraw, or reposition. Each man played a vital role. Walt Davis's sharpshooting, Bobby Fields' rapid loading, and Jimmy Harper's expert driving combined with Kenney's leadership to create a unit that could survive extreme conditions while remaining lethally effective. By mid-April, the Ruhr pocket was collapsing. Kenney's crew had participated in countless engagements, destroying dozens of German vehicles and supporting the encirclement of entire Panzer divisions. Their actions not only demonstrated the effectiveness of the M10 tank destroyer, but also highlighted the importance of skill, coordination, and courage in modern mechanized warfare. The fall of the Ruhr marked one of the final chapters in the European theater. For Kenney and his crew, it was a culmination of years of relentless combat, beginning in North Africa and Italy and ending in the heart of Germany. They had faced the most fearsome tanks, navigated deadly terrain, and survived against overwhelming odds. Their legacy was one of extraordinary heroism, tactical brilliance, and unwavering commitment to their mission. As Germany's defenses crumbled and the Allies prepared to conclude the war, Kenney's crew stood as a testament to the power of a small, disciplined team operating at peak performance, an enduring symbol of the courage and ingenuity of tank destroyer crews in World War II. By late April 1945, the war in Europe was drawing to a close. German resistance was crumbling under relentless Allied advances, yet Sergeant Dean Kenney and his M10 crew remained on high alert. Even in the final days, German forces continued to fight fiercely, often in desperate, last-ditch attempts to slow the Allies. For Kenney and his team, this period was both a culmination of years of combat and a test of endurance and resolve. The crew moved through southern German towns and villages, often encountering pockets of enemy armor and infantry who refused to surrender. In one engagement near Nuremberg, a small German tank detachment attempted to hold a strategic bridge. Kenney's crew, utilizing the M10's mobility, executed a swift flanking maneuver, disabling 2 tanks and scattering the enemy before they could destroy the bridge. Walt Davis's precision firing and Bobby Fields' rapid loading ensured that every shot counted, while Jimmy Harper navigated the vehicle through narrow, debris-laden streets with flawless skill. As the Allies advanced deeper into Germany, Kenney witnessed the human cost of the conflict. Towns were devastated, civilians displaced, and soldiers, both friend and foe, exhausted and battered. The war that had begun in faraway deserts and beaches now brought the stark reality of devastation to Europe's heart. Despite the horrors, Kenney's crew maintained focus on their mission, understanding that discipline and unity were the keys to survival. The final days were marked by a series of decisive engagements. The M10's firepower proved invaluable in breaking through entrenched positions and neutralizing remaining armored threats. Kenney's crew often faced numerical superiority, but consistently leveraged their mobility, tactical acumen, and teamwork to outmaneuver and destroy German vehicles. These actions not only facilitated Allied advances, but also saved countless lives by preventing prolonged engagements that could have been deadly for infantry units. Victory in Europe came on May 8, 1945. For Kenney and his crew, the announcement of Germany's surrender was a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and reflection. They had survived countless battles, faced the most feared tanks of the German army, and endured conditions that would have broken lesser crews. Their M10, a modestly armored vehicle, had proven deadly in the hands of a disciplined, skilled, and courageous team. In the immediate aftermath, Kenney's crew assisted in securing towns, overseeing the surrender of remaining German units, and aiding in humanitarian efforts for civilians. Their experiences during the war had forged an unbreakable bond between the four men. They had become more than a crew. They were a family bound by shared danger, triumph, and the unyielding demands of combat. Reflecting on their journey from the deserts of North Africa to the heart of Germany, the significance of teamwork, strategy, and courage became clear. While the M10 was a remarkable weapon, it was the skill, discipline, and coordination of its operators that made it lethal. Kenney's crew exemplified the best qualities of the U.S. Army's tank destroyer units: ingenuity, bravery, and unwavering commitment to the mission. The legacy of Sergeant Dean Kenney and his crew is one of heroism and tactical brilliance. Their story serves as a vivid example of how small, well-trained units could influence the outcome of battles, disrupt enemy operations, and survive against overwhelming odds. As Europe began the long process of recovery, their accomplishments remained a testament to the human spirit under fire. With the surrender of Germany in May 1945, Sergeant Dean Kenney and his M10 crew finally had a moment to reflect on the extraordinary journey they had endured. From the deserts of North Africa to the mountains of Italy and the heart of Germany, they had faced some of the most formidable armored forces in history and emerged not just alive, but victorious time and again. Their story is a testament to the power of teamwork, tactical ingenuity, and unyielding courage. Throughout the war, the M10 tank destroyer had been far from invincible. Its thin armor made frontal engagements with heavy German tanks extraordinarily dangerous. Yet, Kenney's crew consistently leveraged the vehicle's strengths: speed, maneuverability, and precision firepower. Their ability to strike swiftly, reposition intelligently, and exploit terrain transformed the M10 into a deadly instrument of war. The crew's success was not a matter of luck. It was the result of meticulous training, coordination, and shared trust forged under fire. One of the most striking lessons from Kenney's experience was the importance of teamwork. Each member of the four-man crew had a vital role. Kenney as the commander orchestrating every move, Walt Davis as the precise and unflinching gunner, Bobby Fields as the reliable and efficient loader, and Jimmy Harper as the skilled driver navigating the M10 through deadly terrain. Their synergy allowed them to achieve results that far exceeded what a single man, or even a less cohesive crew, could accomplish. Tactically, the crew demonstrated that mobility and strategy could overcome superior firepower. They perfected the art of ambush, flanking, and hit-and-run attacks, often destroying heavier German tanks like Panthers and Tigers without taking a direct hit. Their approach emphasized patience, observation, and timing, striking when the enemy was most vulnerable and avoiding unnecessary risk. This tactical ingenuity became a hallmark of successful tank destroyer operations during the war. Beyond tactics and teamwork, the story of Kenney's crew highlights the psychological resilience required in combat. They faced constant threats: mines, artillery, enemy tanks, snipers, and the ever-present risk of sudden death. Maintaining focus under these conditions, day after day, required mental toughness and mutual trust. Their cohesion and morale were as important as their technical skill, proving that human factors can be decisive in war. The impact of their actions extended beyond immediate battles. Kenney's crew inspired other units within the 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion, demonstrating the effectiveness of disciplined, mobile operations. They forced German commanders to alter tactics, slowed enemy counterattacks, and facilitated infantry and armored advances across multiple theaters of war. Their legacy was not just in the tanks they destroyed, but in the morale they boosted and the operational lessons they left behind. After the war, the contributions of tank destroyer crews like Kenney's became part of the broader understanding of mechanized warfare. Historians note that small, highly skilled teams could exert an outsized influence on the battlefield, shaping the outcomes of engagements and, in some cases, entire campaigns. The story of Kenney and his crew remains a vivid example of this principle. Ultimately, the legacy of Sergeant Dean Kenney and his M10 crew is one of courage, skill, and unwavering commitment. They exemplified the ideal of a tank destroyer crew, a small team capable of extraordinary feats through coordination, discipline, and ingenuity. Their journey from North Africa to the Ruhr stands as a testament to the human capacity to adapt, survive, and triumph under the most extreme conditions. Even decades later, their story continues to inspire soldiers, historians, and enthusiasts of World War II. It is a reminder that in war, as in life, the combination of talent, teamwork, and determination can overcome even the greatest challenges. Kenney and his crew did not just operate a machine of war. They became a symbol of tactical excellence, bravery, and the indomitable spirit of the men who fought in the tank destroyer units of World War II.